What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Rook and the Kid podcast, episode 7. As always, we are your hosts, Jared May, the Rook, and Hunter Poole, the Kid. I got a fun episode for you guys today. We got to see Oppenheimer this
Oh yeah.
past weekend. Oh, yeah. So we're going to get into that a little bit. A big NFL topic that's going on right now is whether or not the NFL running backs are underpaid in the current market. So we're going to touch on that a little bit. Those will be our two primary segments. Of course, we're going to have our track rankings per usual, our deluxe tracks, and our track records at the end, where we highlight our artist, lyric, or song of the week. But to start off, we're going to talk about Oppenheimer. And this was a big movie, obviously a box office hit. A lot of people were calling it Barbenheimer weekend, where Barbie and Oppenheimer mixed together. So I'm sure it was a big box office hit worldwide, but we did go see it, despite we were hardworking men who decided to go see it at 9:20 in the morning. So
If nobody has ever been to the movies before noon, it is a bunch of old people. You'd be very surprised how many old people get up and go watch movies.
oh yeah, no, it was funny because like we were walking in, and we had woken up at like 6:30 that morning to get some things done, and we got to the to the theater. It was just like a bunch of old people walking. It was like going to eat at Whataburger at like noon. You just see a bunch of old people eating burgers, just having it like because they think it's still that like 50 cent burger place from before 2000. So
Well, I mean, it's like, why are they eating popcorn at 9 o'clock in the morning? And then I think about it, and it's like, oh shit, they've had their third meal of the day already. They've been up since
yeah,
the morning.
yeah.
They ate breakfast, they ate a
Yeah.
lunch, and a 9 o'clock snack.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, they've already had breakfast, lunch, and dinner plus snacks.
they have their 2 p.m. dinner scheduled later at the Cracker Barrel, and in bed by 4 p.m. They got a sheet over the window, so you know it feels like it's dark, and then back at it again.
yeah. I saw some people walking in the movie theater with sunscreen on, which that was pretty interesting. I guess they thought the bomb wasn't, they knew the bomb wasn't CGI, so they threw some sunscreen on to prevent the UV rays from blowing up everybody's eyeballs during the movie.
Well, I guess it's better that people wearing sunblock in there than someone wearing an actual bomb, which I think kind of
Yeah.
eases everybody into this badass movie that we just saw.
Well, the movie was so damn long, they had portable bathrooms at the front of the theater.
I'm just trying to figure out why there was somebody, like I said, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and there's people dressed up like they're going to a prom.
Yeah, yeah.
What the hell are you wearing? It's an Oppenheimer movie.
Yeah, he walked in with his girl. He was wearing business casual, and we're like, had the sleeves rolled up and everything. And so either one, he's trying to imitate Oppenheimer because a lot of people were imitating Barbie and wearing all pink spandex, with their ass hanging out, and they're like, it's Barbie weekend, whatever. And then you got the real men that showed up with coffee mugs in their hand and a scruffy ass beard, Black Rifle coffee. And the guy walked in. We're like, what the fuck? Like, you're going to be in a conference meeting during the movie? I mean, is it a Zoom call with Robert J. Oppenheimer?
He's like walking up the stairs. He's like rolling up his sleeves. He's like,
Yeah.
He's like, what?
Yeah, Jam. I'm sorry, man. Hold on, the movie's playing right now. This is a good part. I'm gonna let me go on mute for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was I'll tell you what, guys. If you have not seen it, it is definitely worth the watch. It was everything that you can expect from a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
He from the cast to picture, the build up to the main part. It was just all in all like a fantastic movie. And when you look at it, spoiler alert, it goes like, it'll be like present time to when they're, before he started making the bomb, and then it goes back, they're doing the interrogation room with him. And just the way I didn't expect that when I went to go see it. I didn't know it was going to be
Yeah, me neither.
how it was going to be. It was definitely a different setup, and I think the build up to them creating this absolute unit of a bomb in the 1940s gave me chills.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it gave me chills down my spine. And I was like, first of all, it's crazy with the technology they had back then that they were able to build something like this. And who would have known if, like, say, like we had to, no one's ever built a bomb before, but then they do one now. You think like the bomb now would be 50 times more powerful than that one. Could probably destroy the Earth, they say,
Yeah.
and it was crazy.
Yeah. No, the thing about the Christopher Nolan movies, well, movies in general, I'll start with that because a lot of the trailers nowadays you see are like 2.5, 3 minutes, and you see the entire movie in the trailer. And you're like, oh, that looks cool, but you don't feel like you need to see it. With Oppenheimer, it was just basically Cillian Murphy, the actor that plays Oppenheimer, is basically just sitting in intense situations, a lot of staring, not a lot of dialogue, just kind of showing who's in the movie, maybe some of the flames from the cinematography that he shoots, and that's it. So nobody knew what to expect when we walked in, which is exactly what you want in a movie. The only other movie that I thought replicated that in a very good way was Avengers Endgame. That second trailer came out, and everybody's anticipating. They dropped the trailer, and you get a hint that like Iron Man might die, and then you get a hint that obviously Thanos is back, but then you watch the movie and you're like, you have no idea how they're going to go back in time and fix everything or who's going to be alive or whatever. But so this movie was good because you couldn't anticipate anything. You just had, even if you knew the story of Oppenheimer, there are so many finite details within this movie that were perfectly represented. And one thing I would say, if you're going to go watch this movie, and if you've watched the past Christopher Nolan movies, such as like Interstellar, you really need to pay attention. Not to, like, you're probably expecting, okay, the bomb's going to be huge, it's going to be loud. Go in there, and I was talking to you about it after the movie. I said I went into the movie expecting something, and I changed my perspective right before I got in and said, all right, no, because he's not using any CGI. Just witness the fine details within the cinematography and see how he does it, because that's how he works. Like a lot like the black hole in Interstellar, where they said that's not actually how a black hole looks. It's not accurate. And then a scientist at a TED Talk was like, no, check this out. So a black hole, we see it horizontally on our telescopes, and in Interstellar, it was vertical. But then they did the math and said, look, this is the warp of the horizontal uh, black hole. And this is the image that NASA has of a black hole. Here is the flipped image. So Christopher Nolan actually expanded knowledge of the wormhole through a movie. And so just when you watch this movie, pay very close attention early on to all the things that Oppenheimer kind of just like races through his minds, and how he envisions like the physics and quantum entanglement, and it's very, very interesting. It's awesome to see.
And another thing I enjoyed about it too was the different ages that Cillian Murphy played, which was like, he had like the when he was like, in college, and after he got in trouble, when he's creating it, like all these, he just played like, he looked different in every single part of the movie. Like there was not one part where he was just like, oh, he just looks the same.
Right.
And I didn't know Robert Downey Jr. was going to be in it. So when I saw that, it kind of was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, and I knew the lineup was big, but there were some people. I'll let you finish. But there were some people I totally forgot were actually even in it.
And then just everyone, if you watch it, guys, the part you're gonna laugh at is when you see what Josh Peck does in the movie. You're gonna be like, out of all the people, Josh Peck is doing this, and you're gonna be like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. From Drake and Josh to doing what he did in the movie. We're like, oh, the boy took a step ahead.
And also, like, Emily Blunt played a fantastic role of being his wife and um, just kind of taking over the strong woman kind of idea. Badass. She's a badass. Kind of when she was parenting a little bit. Spoiler alert: she was not a good parent, and big turn off. But the whole time, I was turned on by her. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, Emily Blunt has always been, not to be punny, but a blunt actor. She did a very good job in Sicario and Quiet Place, but it's always these rough roles. I feel like, I mean, Edge of Tomorrow was another one with Tom Cruise. All three of those movies, and I'm sure there's plenty of other ones that she was in, but she was very intense roles. And so when you get in this one, it's the same thing. But then on the opposite side of the spectrum, Florence Pugh, who played, I believe that's her name, played Black Widow's sister in the Black Widow standalone movie, and everybody was raving about how attractive she was. She was blonde in that movie, though. And in this
Yeah.
movie, she's got short, dark colored hair. But that's where you're gonna see a lot of the the sex scenes with Cillian Murphy.
Also, I'm gonna let you guys know there's not a 15-minute sex scene in
Yeah. Whoever said that, bro? What?
there wasn't even 15 minutes of sex in the movie, and then people were like, "There's a 15-minute sex scene." Which, when I heard it, I was kind of laughing. I was like, "There's just no way that for these actors to even, act out like a 2-minute sex scene probably
Yeah.
takes a lot of takes." And you're trying to tell me they were able to get a 15-minute sex scene, which it's not that people don't like sex, but nobody wants to watch a movie and watch a 15-minute sex scene.
The movie's about Oppenheimer, and Christopher Nolan knew that, so he didn't want to play around with it. There's a 45-minute sex scene in Oppenheimer, and you're like, what? Like, it's a 3-hour movie, so you kind of could believe that it was 15 minutes. But I would argue that Florence Pugh had maybe 8 minutes of screen time total. But to that point, Christopher Nolan did an outstanding job of legitimately sticking to the story of Oppenheimer itself. He didn't really expand too much. I don't know what people are expecting, but again, kind of a spoiler alert. Not really, but if you're anticipating like they're actually going to drop the bomb on, Hiroshima, then that's not what the story's about. The story's about Oppenheimer. So, but I looked at you at the beginning of the movie when we were kind of going through his younger years, and he was interacting with all these different scientists, and he started quantum physics basically in America, was the first to kind of pioneer it. And just think about like how he was the first to pioneer that sort of mathematics and science in America, and the first thing they ask him to do is build an atomic bomb to beat the Nazis in an arms race. And so you're just like, bro, okay. So, but it's very powerful because this is the only time in history, just listen to the language of what I'm trying to say. The only time in history of the planet that we ever dropped an atomic bomb on anyone in history. I mean, if you think about it in that perspective, the movie does an outstanding job of just kind of exploiting that and saying, the repercussions of doing this was so gravitationally important that it should not be ignored. I mean, it's a lot like 9/11. People go, oh, it's 9/11 today. All right, that sucked. I can't believe that happened. But then you go back and you look at all the chaos that happened. That's never happened in the history, something that big has never happened in the history of, mankind. But none of us of our generation have actually lived those moments, our age. So
And
it was interesting to see.
just with like when they're building up to the bomb, and then when they finish it, after the trial run, because you gotta see if this thing work. You can't just be like, all right, we're done. Yeah, you can go try it out now. You don't know what's gonna happen. So they don't know what's gonna happen. Like, is the world gonna get destroyed? Are we all gonna die here? What's gonna happen? And they do it, and then everyone's like, yeah, like, let's go, blah 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 blah. Like, everyone's all happy, and then they don't. Of course, they don't show the actual bomb dropping on a civilization like that, which I don't think people would want to see that anyway. Just a bunch of happy civilians and then just boom, like
It would definitely deteriorate the movie.
yeah, and it kind of just would you know distract you from what the movie was about, which is a good point. And then he sees and then after it has like how he was feeling and what was I felt like from that moment and then to what happened after was the most important part of the whole movie
Yeah.
because then it showed you like how powerful the something like this can do, especially with the death of Hitler. And it's like, do we keep doing this forward? Like, should we not drop it? Gave the Japanese all these warnings about keep playing. We're gonna do it, and it went to one of those things where if I had to look back in history, and I think that if we would have dropped it on a place in Europe, I think it would have been a nuclear warfare across the whole like globe, and I don't know if we'd be here today because you know we would have
Yeah.
lost like the Nazis or Russia or things like that. Who knows what would have happened because their allies might have retaliated towards us, and the next thing you know, it's a nuclear warfare all across the globe, and that's why nobody's dropped a atomic bomb since then. You always hear like, oh, like Kim Jong Un, Putin, when Trump was in office, talking about like the red button on the desk.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to push that button, and who knows what might happen in the next 15 years with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You never know how things are going to escalate, and this movie does a really good job of showing that this bomb is either the destroyer of worlds or it is the ultimate peacemaking device of all time, and someone kind of had to use it, because the whole premise is that we're fighting against the Nazis who started the nuclear, hydrogen bomb, atom bomb program, and we said we need to compete with the Germans and beat them, because if the Nazis get a nuclear bomb, who knows what they can do with it in their hands. And so we started the race, and we beat them to it. However, by the time we actually make the bomb, Hitler's dead. And so there's a halt that, oh my God, like, hold on. I know Japan is still attacking, but we could win the war. We may have to expend some more soldiers, but we could win the war. Hitler's dead. The Nazis are plummeting. And our United States presence was like, well, yeah, we built it to defeat the Nazis, but we also beat it or used it to win the war. And if the Japanese don't hold up, then we're going to use force. And this was back when we had balls, but it's such a terrible thing that we had to use it, and I don't think people wanted to in the first place back then. It's not like we wanted to kill 250,000 people, with a bomb, but with multiple warnings, you kind of reap what you sow. And it's such an awful event. It's one thing that no human should ever have to go through. But the very interesting thing as well was, and I tried to kind of explain this later if you were listening to like the language of what I was trying to say, is when you drop that bomb, this is a test. They tested the bomb. And no one has ever dropped a nuclear bomb before. And so the physics were kind of telling you that it could ignite other different particles on the planet and just cause a chain reaction to where the nuclear bomb would never cease to end. And it would be the destruction of the entire planet but they experimented anyway. And so it'll dive deep into that, and it makes it very intense, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. So, yeah, like that part was very interesting to me because you're like, wait a minute, like we didn't even think about this. We didn't even think about this. Hold on, this type of bomb could have blown up the entire Earth nonstop, just a chain reaction. So,
And especially they didn't test it by dropping it, so then they'd
right,
already tested it. So then, but if you've never dropped it on a place. Like it's a lot. It's one of those movies where, like Christopher Nolan, like he doing like a story like this, which is like a big part of American history. Most famous man in the world, only atomic bomb to ever be dropped, and yeah, you're correct. It's you never know what could have happened if they didn't drop it, or if they did drop it, it could have destroyed the whole Earth. And y'all just need to go watch it.
A lot like a Woj bomb can destroy the entire NBA. To go back to one of our first couple episodes.
Yeah, what's more powerful, a Oppenheimer bomb or a Woj bomb? And I'm just saying, Oppenheimer bomb, didn't destroy the Earth. However, a Woj bomb would destroy the whole NBA.
It would just it would destroy the entire NBA. But last thing I will say about Oppenheimer before we move to our track ranking is if you leave to go to the restroom, you will be completely lost. Which, not saying either of us did. We both stayed the entire movie. I pissed in a cup while we were sitting there. When you're watching this, it's 3-hour movies. All right, it's a 3-hour movie. After the main event happens is when you really need to start paying really close attention. It starts moving really fast, very political, and there's a little scene towards the end that got me and Hunter goosebumps because it introduced a very, very famous person who encountered a very, very famous, unfortunate, tragic event just a couple years after the end of World War II. And it's playing a huge factor in a presidential candidate today. So be aware of that. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. Unless you want to cover right before we get to track ranking. Actually, I totally forgot. I guess we kind of mentioned it. Your favorite supporting character.
Yeah, so I have Emily Blunt as the wife of Oppenheimer, and then I have Robert Downey Jr. as the antagonist to who ended up being Oppenheimer.
Yeah, those are good ones. And then Robert Downey Jr. did a fantastic job, by the way. Like I would choose him, but since you chose them, I'm gonna go a different route. The guy who played Han Solo in the Han Solo movie, standoff movie, he plays a very, very good supporting cast role who has a lot of interactions with Robert Downey Jr. And my number 2, he does not show up much, but at the very end, he is the game changer, and it's Rami Malek.
Oh, yeah.
He does. Oh my gosh, I almost put Albert Einstein in there, but Rami Malek does a fantastic job at the end, and I did not expect that to happen.
Yeah, awesome, fantastic movie. Christopher Nolan, best director ever.
It's close. Yeah, he's definitely up there, top
Either
3.
him or Michael Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, either him, Michael Bay, or George Lucas.
George Lucas did create Star Wars. I can't deny that one.
Yeah, the first 6. But yeah, for our track ranking of the week, we're gonna do our top 3 Christopher Nolan movies. Yeah. So I'd be interested to see what you're listening
today.
A lot of Christopher Nolan today. I don't know how much money I'd have to be offered to have dinner with him. Would you take $500,000 to have a dinner with Christopher Nolan, or would you have 10 minutes with Jesus for free?
10 minutes with Jesus Christ for free.
Respect. Same answer.
Because 10 minutes of Jesus Christ turns into 10 million. Think about that.
Big brain. That's exactly right.
Think about it.
All right. I'll let you go first. Start with 3. You know the drill.
Number 3, I'm going to go with The Dark Knight Rises.
Respect.
And Batman is one of my favorite superheroes of all time in the Christopher Nolan was it was definitely my favorite Batman. I think Christian Bale did a fantastic job playing that role. And just, going to what happened to the first Dark Knight was with, he had the Joker, and then the second one he has the Bane squad. He's been hiding, he has to come out, become a hero again. And just that, all that picture. And then I thought Tom Hardy played a fantastic villain. He's like,
Yeah, he was a great Bane.
it doesn't matter who we are, what matters is our plan.
Yeah,
And
crashing this plane.
always, every time, when you watch these Christopher Nolan, there's always a quote in there where it just, sticks to you. And, with this one, it's like, nobody cared until I put on the mask. Just kind of your villain art kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah. Tom Hardy, it usually reoccurs in a lot of Christopher Nolan movies, and he does a fantastic job every time.
Yeah, I'm actually intrigued since, we're both doing, the top 3 Christopher Nolans. Where would you rank, or what would you have as your number 3?
My number 3 is also a Batman trilogy movie, but I have the Dark Knight, the second one with Heath Ledger as the Joker. I just think it does such a great job of orchestrating a follow up story with Batman against his number one enemy. But I tell you, who steals that show outside of the Joker was Two-Face. He does a phenomenal job, and especially at the end, like you said, the quotes of every movie: either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that is a very, very powerful quote. And then, of course, at the end, Batman telling Jim Gordon after he saved his son that you have to chase me because I'm the hero. I'm not the hero Gotham deserves, or the one it needs, or the one it needs right now. However the phrase goes, and so they have to chase him. They have to pursue him because he can take it. And so it's such a phenomenal story. And of course, the boat scene. They're forced to pull the trigger, and Heath Ledger's whole premise, or the Joker's whole premise, is that once he's ahead of the curb, and that once you give humans the choice to decide, that they'll eat each other basically if forced to, and that he proved them wrong, or the humans proved the Joker wrong. Very powerful scene.
And with with my number 2, I had the Dark Knight as well. Just it's one of those things strictly on that Joker performance by Heath Ledger was just powerful. And you never seen, we had like the Jack Nicholson Joker before that, and just seeing Heath Ledger, going from this like, oh, pretty boy actor, never really had a serious role. He's in Brokeback Mountain, for crying out loud, and him doing that, he just completely destroyed the role. And the whole time, every time the Joker was on camera, saying these things to all these people, it made you feel like you were there. And then it's funny because people like, I saw this clip of First Take talking about it, and like when it came out, and they were talking, it was like the love affair with Batman just wasn't there. The woman in there, and I was like, you know what? That's a very good point.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But like, besides all that, just like, all the scenes, and then, the explosion when he's walking out of the hospital, and then when Harvey Dent sees the Joker, takes off his mask, and he's like,
he doesn't notice who he is until the Joker pulls down the mask, and he's
yeah. Like that scene just like
such a classic one.
That one just gets you every time. And props to Christian Bale and Heath Ledger doing that job where people are saying like, oh, they shouldn't, this is going to be a shit movie, why are these people doing this? And not Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan knew exactly what he was doing. He's not going to ever put a scrub team together to make a movie. You know, yeah, maybe some people could have done a better job, but I don't know. That's one of the top 10 movies of all time. So
All right, yeah. So my number two is Oppenheimer. I don't have it at number one, but obviously we just went through all of what Oppenheimer was. But I just think the magnitude of developing the first ever nuclear bomb and utilizing it on a country to win a world war, despite the catastrophic casualties that it would create, plus just the development of the bomb and the threat of it destroying the entire Earth is something that is a lot of people it just kind of weeps over their head, and it didn't for me. When I was watching it, I was very, very intrigued. That kind of stuff matters to me. History is doomed to repeat itself, but this might be the one thing, heaven forbid, or please God, this might be the only thing that doesn't repeat itself because of how massively destructive it was when it was used 60 or 70 years ago. So yeah, Oppenheimer definitely number two. The cast, the acting, Cillian Murphy has done an incredible job, especially after Peaky Blinders. Robert Downey Jr. stepped up his game. It was nice to see our boy from The Boys, Huey. Huey was in there. It was nice to see him, and Emily Blunt, the female cast in that movie, also did such an amazing job. So yeah.
yeah, I agree. Well,
Plus, I don't know his name. Not real quick. I don't know his name. That the God, the doctor that he first meets when he comes back to America with the kind of fancy hair with the glasses. Edwards, I think, is his name. I don't know. I can't remember. He did a fantastic. I don't even know his name as an actor, but he did a fantastic job in the movie. He was the one that was like against Oppenheimer, uh, bringing politics into the classroom.
yeah,
Anyway, he did a good job.
I'm trying to think of his name. And I just remember Matt Damon was in that movie too.
Yes, he
Matt
did a
Damon,
fantastic.
every
It's
movie,
expected.
every movie, he gets better and better. Well, my number one, I have Oppenheimer, and really for a lot of it was the reasons you said, but the biggest reason for my number one is because I really enjoy watching movies of stuff that actually took place in time. I like watching action movies, superhero movies, but for the most part, like those are like you can create those kind of things. With this is very real. This really did happen, you know, and just kind of that with like the build up to like the Oppenheimer bomb, and it was just I can't I don't want to keep talking about Oppenheimer because we just spent 25 minutes doing it, but all in
Yeah,
all, it's definitely with telling the real story and just seeing that. And the whole time I was on the edge of my seat. And for the last like 3 days, it's like, damn, I really want to go watch that movie again. Even though it's 3 hours long, I was like, I will watch it again instead of watching Barbie.
yeah,
Fuck that.
yeah. The next movie on my agenda, unfortunately, I haven't been able to see it yet. Is Sound of Freedom. I have to go see that movie. Part of me feels bad that I went and saw Oppenheimer and I haven't seen Sound of Freedom. However, like I've mentioned to you off the record, I've done all the research about what Sound of Freedom is about and all the stats and horrible statistics that are out there. But I need to get a visualization. Good list. Number one for me is actually Inception. And a couple of my buddies will laugh because I said that because they know how much I talk about this movie. I just think that the dream concept of time is super, super unique and powerful. And the cast in that movie was fantastic as well. And Tom Hardy does a fantastic. Cillian Murphy's in it. He plays an elemental role. And then, of course, none other than Leonardo DiCaprio leading the charge. But the cliffhanger at the end of the movie is what sets apart it from the rest. very big cliffhanger, and people still talk about it today. And that movie came out over a decade ago. Well, maybe 9 years ago, almost a decade ago, around
Yeah,
10 years
I
ago,
think they come out in
2014.
2014.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the ending, you're just kind of like, no, what? You're like, what do you mean? Like you're like, is it happening? Like you just like,
Yeah, well, we always laugh about the Andrew Garfield thing when he shows up as Spider-Man. Everybody's throwing popcorn and shit. If you've seen the theater reaction for Inception, everybody starts like yelling. The like it has like the bobber spinning or whatever, then and then it ends, and everybody goes ah. I was like, oh, no, yeah. So yeah, what the fuck, yeah. So, but yeah, let's get into the next segment of our podcast. That was our track ranking of the week, our top 3 Christopher Nolan movies. Up next is our deluxe tracks. These are our headlines. If you're a new follower, we headline some topics, whether in politics, sports, or just general media. And I can start with mine, and then I'll let the kid follow up. So this is under 3 minutes. Usually, we're aiming for under 3 minutes. However, Johnny Football is having his Untold story on Netflix, and it airs August 8th, 2023. This story will go in depth, covering Johnny Manziel's crazy roller coaster collegiate career at Texas A&M University, and an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the Heisman winner. Then Sound of Freedom, which I keep mentioning this movie, but I do not apologize for it. The Sound of Freedom dominates Indiana Jones in the box office despite controversy of the film. Additionally, families that have tried to go see the film in theaters have experienced major setbacks to prevent them from seeing the movie, such as them turning off the AC, intentionally setting off the fire alarms, anonymously refunding the tickets, and a bunch of other stuff. So I encourage all to stay in the theaters and watch this movie. If you doubt that stuff is actually happening, I promise you it is. They do not want you to see that movie. Tucker Carlson interviewed some GOP Republican presidential candidates at the 2023 Family Leadership Summit in Iowa. Throughout the entirety of the event, Tucker manifested his own personal highlight reel as he savaged Mike Pence after he admitted to U.S. cities not being his main primary concern. Though DeSantis' response to Ukraine, it suggested he was a war pig, basically, although obviously that's unconfirmed, but his comments were kind of controversial. And Kristi Noem remains silent on the fault of the Ukrainian pipeline that was destroyed allegedly by NATO and the United States, is the conspiracy theory. She declined to answer that question. And then Tucker presented based vaccine comments and elevated the legitimacy of young, energetic Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, who ended up being the second most voted for at the summit, above Ron DeSantis and others. Fast forward at the Turning Point USA Summit in Florida, soon after Tucker delivered a powerful speech in response to his performance at the Iowa Summit. So Tucker Carlson is dominating the headlines.
that was a good. The way you said that last name, that was pretty spot on because I could not do that shit.
Oh, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah, we definitely need to go watch Sound of Freedom. I'm definitely excited also about the Johnny Football documentary. I think that'd be really intriguing to see. Just everyone already heard the stories, but to actually just see it in documentary is going to be crazy.
Too much money in my fucking hand.
And to finish off your last point, Tucker Carlson is just a G. He's top T. Top T. That was good, man. You always know when you do your deluxe tracks, you're going to get very good information, good notes. Especially the people who listen want to hear, education. They want to learn something every time they go on here. My deluxe tracks, we're going to do number 1. We got Cowboys today extended Diggs to a 5-year, $97 million extension with $42 million guaranteed. It makes him about the 6th highest paid cornerback, and it's very team friendly, and it still gives us time to make deals with Zach Martin, Diggs, or not Diggs, Michael Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, Dak. Gives us leadway with that. Which brings me to the second point that Zach Martin does not report to training camp today because he is upset about his contract. I do think they will get it resolved before the season starts. Zach Martin, he's well in his right to be upset. For the most part, I think he's a very team-friendly player. But whatever money he wants, as long as it's not absurd, I think they should give it to him. And at number 3, the Astros beat the Rangers on a walk-off last
Oh
night
my God.
at Minute Maid Park to crawl their way back into the top of the AL West, 2 games behind, and they lead at the moment in the bottom of the 5th, 2-0.
There's always an Astros headline in your deluxe tracks, and it's funny. Yes, the Rangers are, after starting 6-0 to start the All-Star break, the Rangers have the toughest slate, I would argue, in the MLB for the month of July. As the Astros in the month of July are playing the Athletics and teams like that. So
I mean, we're
this
playing
is this is the Astros' chance. That's all I'm saying. This is the Astros' chance to catch up. If they're going to catch up any month, it is this month.
So
If the Astros can escape, or if the Rangers can escape with a series loss but not a sweep against the Astros, we'd be lucky. We don't have Seager right now, but it's entertaining.
Garcia is playing today at least.
Yeah. Yeah, we lost a couple of people simultaneously and then went to go play the Astros in Minute Maid. So tough break, but no excuses. Hopefully we can drive out a win today.
It was funny. I was off camera. I was talking about Diaz with my friend, and I was like, Maldonado, he's a better defensive player, but Diaz, he can hit the ball. Most catchers don't hit 270. We got Diaz, and Diaz walked it off last night. I literally had a conversation like an hour before the game, and I was like, keep it up, Diaz. Keep it up, please.
Yeah, and to the Rangers, please do not pitch Aroldis Chapman against the Astros ever.
Yeah, they need to.
They should know that.
They should know by now. Just go look up Aroldis Chapman highlights versus the Astros, and those people who have not seen it, you will understand why the Rook just said that.
And then real quick, last comment about that. It was kind of funny. I don't know if you saw this. I was going to send it, but the bases were loaded against in the last game, and the Rangers had the bases loaded, and the Astros were pitching, and they swapped like the technological, I guess, communicator, the comms basically, and the guy didn't even check to see if it worked. He just did that and then struck out the batter, or got out the batter just after that. So conspiracy theorists on the Rangers social media are saying that the Astros are cheating again, which is, in my opinion, is a lame excuse. Just, it's all right. We just didn't get the batters in. It's fine. Well, we didn't do our job.
McCormick almost hit a home run yesterday, and then
McCormick's an asshole.
Yeah, he almost hit one. They counted a double, still scored 2 runs, and then it's 6-9, bottom of the 6th inning, and this time Abreu smoked one to tie up the game.
Shocker. Abreu of all people.
Yes, it was. He's been a little bit of not as. I thought he'd be a lot better with the Astros, but still,
he'll be all right.
We'll see in the playoffs. Well, that's where, if we make it.
Yeah, y'all will make it. There's our own little mini segment there on the Astros. It's kind of funny. The Astros and Rangers. It's fun. Now that they're both good and we can actually compete against one another, it's fun. Well, let's get into the topic of discussion. Are NFL running backs underpaid? And this is a huge headline in NFL news outside of Justin Herbert's new contract, which we'll probably get into next week. He was paid this evening. But Saquon Barkley kind of led the charge on this. If you guys are unaware, there is a big problem in the NFL when it comes to paying any player. If you don't, like you mentioned earlier, Zach Martin's holding out, of all people, Zach Martin. It's very common for players to hold out for money. Zeke did it. But, this is just the way things go. But they made this a huge ordeal. And in my opinion, it's valid, but I have a counter argument for it. But just to kind of give you also a couple facts and rundowns. So Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and Austin Eckler all received no contract extensions before the deadline. However, Saquon Barkley was paid today. His franchise tag was around $10 million for a year, and his new contract was 1 year, $11 million, which basically means he's going to have to redo this whole process next year. But here's the big thing. An average salary for an NFL running back in 2023 is $1.81 million. The average salary for an NFL kicker in 2023 is $2.26 million. The average age for an NFL running back is around 28 and a half years old. As a kicker for the NFL, it's 29.7 years old. Basically saying that running backs do not have a long tenured career span historically. So as of September 20 of 21, the average salary for running backs was between 2 and 3 million. So it's actually, and I could be wrong, but it's actually decreased since 2021, which will go into my counter argument here in a little bit. However, I'd love to hear your initial thoughts on if you think running backs are underpaid in the NFL, if you think Saquon Barkley deserved more, or any of these other running backs, or who should get paid and who should not. Just your general thoughts on it.
Well, to start off, Saquon Barkley leading the charge, and then kind of taking that deal where it really doesn't solve anything. It kind of thinks like, these running backs are already, they're fed up. We're like, we're not taking this shit no more, blah, blah, blah. And then he just gets one more, like what, he can earn maybe 2 more million. There's no long term. So then you're like, why do they have this? Like, was it like Saquon is mad for all the running backs, or was he trying to was this for him? I kind of looked at it like that. And then I wanted to ask you with your thoughts about this, to kind of go to my point. How many good running backs do you think are in the league right now? Just say out of the 32 starting running backs, how many of them would you say were good, great?
I would say more than half. So more than 16, I would say, are good running backs, if not more, because there's a lot of hidden gems, I feel like, at running back, some unproven guys that are young, but have maybe somebody in front of them who are actually, kind of taking the reins, because, we go by committee backfields nowadays in the National Football League. But yeah, I mean, I just going off our fantasy rankings from a couple weeks ago, I had Pollard at like 12 or 13th. And I think that was a little far back for him, but the guys I had in front of him were really, really solid NFL football players. And then the people behind him, too, were also really solid NFL football players. But once you get outside of that 20, I think you start getting into those veteran guys, those guys that everybody kind of forgot about. They're signing vet minimum contracts, and they're serving as those committee backfield guys where it's like, okay, I need a filler for weeks 2 through 3 because our guy's in the PUP list or something. But to answer your question, I would say more than half, meaning 16 or more, are good to great running backs, which, is small, but comparatively to like, there's only one running back versus there's 3 receivers that can start on a roster. It's a little different market. It's a rarity.
So you got 16, you say you got about 16 good, great running backs. And if you were to think, what about if this running back is not on a Super Bowl contender team, how many of the running backs getting paid over 10 million would you take? So I got a list right here.
Okay.
We have Derrick Henry at 12.5 million. Nick Chubb is 12.2 million. Josh Jacobs is 10.10 million or 10 million. Same with Tony Pollard and also Barkley. You got James Conner with 7 million. Austin Eckler with 6 million. You got Mixon with almost 6 million. Aaron Jones is at 12 million and Kamara is at 15 million.
Okay.
Looking at those numbers and what a running back brings to a team, out of those guys, if you're not a Super Bowl contender team, how many of those guys would you take when these guys want more money?
A couple of those guys I definitely wouldn't. Alvin Kamara, I wouldn't, like right now, I would not take. James Conner, even though he's a serviceable running back, is another guy that I just kind of I'm not paying him money like that, to be honest with you. And there's a couple more names that you have in there listed. I mean, Austin Eckler, as good as he is catching the ball at the line of scrimmage, I don't believe he's the most serviceable running back for his job as running back. It's kind of like my Deebo Samuel argument, where it's like, okay, his job is to play wide receiver, but they use him as kind of a hybrid running back, screen and slant guy. But at the wide receiver position, he's not top 15, in my opinion. So for a guy like Eckler, who can't really, he runs 16 times a game and gets 38 yards, you're paying that guy $6 million a year, and he's complaining about it. It's like, yeah, you might be a fantasy guy, but you're not paid to be a fantasy god. You're not paid to be a PPR legend. You're paid to get results. You're paid to get 1,000 plus yards rushing with in your caliber for Austin Eckler, or sorry, not yours specifically, but Eckler's. He needs 300 plus receiving yards too if he's really all about it. He just doesn't make those numbers. So him complaining about numbers now is not an argument. The other thing too, and I'll transition into my counter argument based off your questions. So I would say about half of the running backs you listed, I probably would not take. I believe Joe Mixon got a pay cut as well to stay with the team, which is something that a lot of running backs don't normally do. And I was pretty shocked that Joe Mixon did that. But the counter argument would be is that long tenured running back agenda. And it's an unfortunate thing. It's not something that I support, but it's something that I believe is true. A primary test subject, of course, would be somebody like Ezekiel Elliott, who he held out.
Talking about him. Not just
we paid him early on, and we saw that how damaging his salary cap was and how his life as a running back just continued to deteriorate. And you can argue A, B, and C about it. We've gone through it, probably 4 or 5 podcasts about why it is that he deteriorated, but it's not really his fault. It's the game and how it's played these days. They take an absolute brutal beating. I mean, even guys like Najee Harris are getting so many.
I'll cut you off real quick because I will give you props and Ryan and all that.
Good.
With the Zeke, I will gladly say y'all were right about Zeke because of the price.
Okay, say it again.
Like, you guys were right. Like, you shouldn't pay Zeke that much.
One more time.
Fuck you. But
it's the first time you've ever admitted we were right about something. I had to get that.
Yeah, well, it's just like it wasn't necessarily his fault. Like, they're still they're running him up the gut 300 times, all that. But, a man is a man when he admits when he's wrong,
Absolutely.
I
Respect.
was wrong about that. And especially when I started thinking about it was just because the way our team, it's like the only person, I would say it's one, and now I'll let you go back to your Najee Harris. Like, the only person on these lists that I can think that actually could lead a team to the Super Bowl, which it would not happen, is probably Derrick Henry 2 years ago. I don't know about Derrick Henry now, but Nick Chubb. We've seen Nick Chubb do it, and I love McCaffrey, and I do think he is the best running back because he is on the 49ers now. But you saw what happened when he was on the Panthers.
Yeah, exactly.
Running backs just don't really make you. They don't make you Super Bowl contenders unless you're already a Super Bowl contender before that.
Yeah.
You're right, though. Go ahead.
Well, that's an excellent point, and it kind of reminded me of your question you asked earlier. So I'll try and answer that. But yeah, the Najee Harris thing, he gets so many carries, and people are already starting to worry that he's going to burn out after 2 seasons. And you're like, well, why is that? If you want to pay these running backs, you think they're worth this much. Why are we wanting to pay these running backs after 2 years? You think they're going to burn out? My argument is that these running backs should be paid a lot earlier because that's their lifespan. I mean, you already know that Bijan Robinson is going to be an absolute ferocious running back of the NFL. He's got insane metrics, so he gets one good year. Dude, pay him. He's going to be even better the next year. But, a lot of these running backs aren't playing full seasons either. There was a couple notable running back injuries last year. Tony Pollard tore his Achilles in the playoffs. Javion Williams tore his ACL. Brees Hall tore his ACL. Elijah Mitchell was a good to great running back. He was hurt in the majority of the season. So yeah, I just think that the market needs to shift to a payment earlier rather than paying these guys once their rookie contract is up. But then once again, follow the money. It's all about money. And then to answer your questions about the Super Bowl real quick, is all the teams that have won the Super Bowl in the past couple of years, the majority of the teams are not paying their running back. The Chiefs had Pacheco, the Patriots a while back had LeGarrette Blount. I mean, you could just go down the line. They don't. That's not how you win games. You have your running backs. That's your window. You have your running backs you're not paying, or you're paying a minimum for by committee, and they service well.
So, like you said, like to bring on Bijan. Bijan is going to be ferocious on the Falcons. He's probably going to be top 3 like fantasy running back, and he's probably going to be able to put up like 1,400 yards, especially with Arthur Smith running the offense. The only team where he could have been drafted to, where it's like this team is going to be Super Bowl contenders again, would have been the Eagles. Bijan on the Eagles, like with the Cowboys, it's not the Cowboys. It doesn't make you like Bijan sounds nice, but it wouldn't make us Super Bowl contenders. And just the way the Eagles play, I think Bijan would be the only way, or just like even a good like Dalvin Cook was a go to their team. Like it's so hard to pay running backs because they do a lot of dirty work. They're doing a lot of they're going up against these ferocious athletes in the middle. They're getting hit 20 times a game, getting chopped, all that. But if you look at it, they really don't. Running back position does not usually put you over the top unless you're already a contender. And I can see why the Giants are having trouble wanting to pay, and even the Raiders don't want to pay Josh Jacobs. Is like you could go like if you want to show your value. I mean, you could go to a Super Bowl contender team, but if you stay here, yeah, maybe you might be able to run for 1,500 yards, but we're 5-12, 5-13, or whatever.
Right.
Same with the Giants. Like, yeah, Daniel Jones isn't the most. He's not the best quarterback. He's not a top 10 quarterback, but he's a average to maybe above average quarterback, like right above it. And the thing about it is, having Saquon there is. I don't think it makes him better in the long term. It might help Daniel Jones maybe develop more, but they can have. They don't need Saquon to be like a 9-win team.
Yeah.
Just, like Saquon does do a lot, but it's just you can always find other guys, and then when you're not paying your running back so much money, then you can, especially when you're not already a contender, you can fill up like the more important spots, which would be, good line,
right,
defensive line.
Yep.
If you have an average quarterback, you need an average throwing quarterback. If you have an average throwing quarterback, you probably need to go get him a pretty solid stud wide receiver. You need to pay him. You need to give him a number 1. Does he need a number 1 running back, which you don't even know if they're going to be able to stay healthy for 17 games? It depends how you look at it. They could possibly do maybe if they were like, okay, when you sign your rookie contract, you get 2 years. If you're in the first round, 2 years, $20 million, or whatever. Like you get a 2-year contract, and if you made it, then you can maybe sign another 2-year, 3-year. Get more money. But I just think the one way to fix it is slimming down the contract of a running back when they get drafted. But the only counter to that would be, why would teams even think about drafting a running back to begin with?
Right. Yeah.
So they're never going to win this battle, no matter how much you want to, or you can think about like these people have, if you look at like the feelings aspect of it, they just can't win. There's no real argument to back up their worth.
Yeah, that the old adage, of course, is facts don't care about your feelings. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, Saquon Barkley's case is that he has a long injury history. And this is his first year outside of his rookie year, basically, that he's produced a full season of outstanding statistics and production. And he's demanding that he gets paid long term when they know his injury history is like 50%. He's going to play the whole year, and 50% he's not. And that's a hit or miss situation. Obviously, guys like Christian McCaffrey are high tier, short term rentals for powerhouse teams that don't have to pay a quarterback. So like they can afford a guy like Christian McCaffrey because they're not paying a quarterback right now. But yeah, so just to keep in mind that it's not that teams don't value the running back; it's that teams organizations are going along with the trend that running backs take the most beating. They had the least tenured life in the NFL, and they're not a rarity. You can find a running back like Malik Davis. You can find a running back like the Ernest Johnson for the Browns. You can find a running back like Wayne Gallman for the Eagles. Those guys are not getting paid anything, but they could have the same production as their starters almost. Not the same, but very close too. And those committee backfields usually add up to a very productive offensive season. That's just the way offenses roll these days. But yeah, hopefully they figure out something that they meet in the middle on some contract scenarios. I'm happy that Pollard is. We talked about it a long time ago. We didn't want to pay Pollard long term yet. We wanted to see if he could play a full season, to your point, as a full 3-down back. And the Cowboys are smart. They learned their mistake from Zeke, and we'll see what happens with these running backs.
Those are good points, man. I agree. Yeah, with the Tony Pollard situation, I love TP. I love watching him play, but we've never seen him be a full 3-down running back for 1 year. And it kind of makes you, like I said, like Zeke-wise, like paid-wise, you won't pay him that much. But then maybe Tony Pollard being a 3-down back, it makes you think like, wow, Zeke was probably a little bit more important than we thought. But when you're paying the running back that much, and we're not really a run team to begin with, we don't need to be paying running backs that much. If we were a run team, for sure. Like the only two teams I can think about where they actually build their team around running, one specific guy is Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all good points. Well, you know what's next.
Deluxe or the Deluxe. What is it called? Trak.
The track records. We could do the deluxe version too. But yeah, track records of the week. If you guys are new followers, this is our artist, lyric, or song highlight of the week. If you guys are returning, then you know what the fuck the deal is. I'm going to let the kid go first with his track record of the week, and then I will finish it off, pause, and then we will close it out for you guys.
Thank you, Rook. Well, my track record of the week is going to be Tracy Lawrence, Find Out Who Your Friends Are. And that's the name of the song. And then that's going to be my lyric as well. You find out who your friends are. Rook, I just want to say thank you for helping me move some shit this weekend. Thank you for being my best friend. And I got your back. And this next month's going to fly by. We're going to have a good time. And I'm ready to rock and roll. And I just want to say thank you for being my friend.
No problem. Always. Understand the language in that. Always. Because a lot of people are like, hey, man, why are you doing that? Why are you getting up at 6:30 in the morning to help? I mean, you go to work and wake up at 6 every morning, and you're going to get up at 6:30 on the one day you get to sleep in? I don't care. It's a full day. We moved in all this stuff, helping my dog out, and then we go see Oppenheimer. Then we spend time at the pool, and we go celebrate somebody's birthday. Then the next day we hang out and get some food, hold hands, and we're. But yeah, no, absolutely, bro. Always. Good conversations too at the pool. We got a lot of discussion through. So, and your lyric coordinates with that well. Mine is Silverado for Sale by Morgan Wallen. So this one is kind of hitting home because it's like we're both in scenarios where eventually we're gonna have to get rid of our cars that we've had for a long time. So I've had a truck since 2017, the same one, Old Champagne is her name, and in a year and a half, 2 years, maybe less, depending on what happens, it's gonna be gone. But the amount of memories that I've had in that truck with Friday Night Lights, JUCO athletics, old flames, ex-girlfriends, whatever it may be, me and you, driving to the ranch and beating the hell out of my truck at the ranch and stuff. It's going to be tough letting her go, but I don't know. So Silverado for Sale is a great, that's a great song. It's going to be me when I put that truck on the market.
Yeah, it's a good ass fucking song.
Yeah,
you always. I feel like we always come up with some good track records of the week.
Yeah, it's solid. It's nice to put a musical taste in each of our in all of our episodes. Well, August is next week, obviously, but we're getting closer and closer to NFL football. So keep in mind we might have some returning contributors in the near future. Just be monitoring that on Instagram. Our Instagram is at trak.pod. You can find us on Twitter with the same tag. Or, I'm sorry, you can find us on TikTok with the same tag. Twitter, you can find us, or X is what it's called now, I believe. Twitter X. You can find us at the Trak Podcast. And then obviously go like, follow, and download our episodes on Spotify. Luckily, this one will not get a YouTube strike, but you might see it on Twitter. You might see the episode on Twitter. So I've been trying to see if I could do that. So if I can do that, you might see it there. I know we don't have a lot of reach on Twitter, but still. But yeah, this was track 7. We'll be back next Wednesday, as always, for the new month and a new episode. So you guys have a good rest of y'all's week, and hope our trackers stay safe out there.
Go watch Oppenheimer.